Imagine reaching retirement after working for 30 or 40 years, only to hear that the system you planned your entire future around could be changed. What would happen to your monthly check? Would your benefits remain guaranteed? Or could part of your retirement money suddenly depend on the stock market? Those are the questions many Americans are asking after reports that President Trump wants officials to examine Australia's retirement system as a possible model for the United States. But before fear takes over, let us make one thing absolutely clear. Your current Social Security benefit has not been replaced. No new law has ended the program, and no announcement has canceled your monthly payment. Right now, this is an idea being studied. However, it still deserves serious attention because the biggest unanswered question could affect millions of people. Would an Australia-style retirement account be added on top of Social Security, giving workers another way to save? Or would it eventually replace part of the guaranteed Social Security system? Those are two completely different possibilities. A supplemental account could help workers build additional retirement savings. That could especially help people who do not have a pension or a workplace 401. But replacing even part of Social Security would create much bigger concerns. Social Security is not simply an investment account. It provides monthly income designed to last for life. It also supports disabled workers, surviving spouses, and certain family members. A personal investment account may contain your own money, but it does not automatically promise that the money will last as long as you live. And that difference is where this conversation becomes extremely important. Australia's retirement structure has several parts. The best-known part is commonly called super, which is short for superannuation. Under that system, employers generally contribute an amount equal to 12% of an eligible worker's earnings into a retirement account. This contribution is made in addition to the employee's regular pay. The money goes into an investment fund, and the account normally follows the worker when that person changes jobs. That sounds attractive. Someone who works part-time, changes employers frequently, or has never had access to a traditional pension could still build retirement savings. But here is the part that should not be ignored. That money is invested. Its value can rise when the financial markets perform well, but it can also fall. Investment fees, taxes, market conditions, career interruptions, and personal decisions can all affect how much money is eventually available. In other words, the worker may own the account, but the worker also carries more of the risk. Social Security works differently. You do not receive a personal account containing a fixed pile of money. Instead, once you qualify, the program provides monthly benefits under federal rules. You cannot normally pass your personal Social Security contributions directly to your children as an inheritance. An individual retirement account could potentially leave money to family members, which sounds like a major advantage. But there is another side to that promise. What happens if someone retires during a market downturn? What happens if the person withdraws too much money too quickly? What happens if that retiree lives 25 or 30 years after leaving work? A personal balance can eventually reach zero. That is the danger hidden behind the attractive word ownership. More control can also mean more responsibility, more uncertainty, and more opportunity to make a costly mistake. Australia has not completely abandoned government retirement support. It also provides an age pension for qualifying individuals, generally beginning at age 67. However, eligibility and payment amounts can depend on a person's income and assets. That means Australia combines compulsory private retirement savings with a government-financed, means-tested safety net. So it would be misleading to describe the Australian model as nothing more than privatized Social Security. It is an entirely different structure. And here is another major point that often gets lost in the headlines. Creating private retirement accounts would not automatically solve Social Security's existing financial problem. Social Security operates largely as a pay-as-you-go program. Payroll taxes collected from today's workers are used to pay today's beneficiaries. That structure becomes strained when the number of beneficiaries grows faster than the number of workers paying into the system. Americans are also generally spending more years in retirement than previous generations. That is good news for individuals, but it means the program must send payments for a longer period of time. At the same time, fewer workers are supporting each beneficiary. Birth rates have declined, and Congress has repeatedly delayed making difficult decisions. So even if America created a brand new private savings program, lawmakers would still have to address the benefits already promised under Social Security. A shiny new account does not erase the old financial obligation. Congress already has possible solutions, but none of them are painless. Lawmakers could require higher earners to pay Social Security taxes on more of their income by increasing or removing the taxable earnings cap. Supporters argue that this would bring additional money into the program without reducing the benefits of ordinary retirees. Critics would argue that it represents a significant tax increase on higher earners. Another possibility is gradually increasing the payroll tax rate. Currently, workers and employers divide the Social Security payroll tax. Raising that combined rate could strengthen the program, but it would also mean smaller paychecks for workers or higher costs for employers. Then there is the option that creates immediate anger: raising the retirement age again. Supporters say people are living longer and collecting benefits for more years. But that argument ignores a difficult reality. Not everyone can continue working into their late 60s or 70s. A person working behind a desk may be able to delay retirement more easily than someone who has spent decades lifting heavy materials, driving long shifts, working in a factory, or standing all day. Raising the retirement age may look like a simple adjustment on paper, but for many workers, it would operate like a benefit cut. Congress could also consider means testing Social Security. Under that approach, lower and middle-income retirees could receive greater protection while wealthier retirees receive reduced benefits. But that would change the basic promise of Social Security. People have always viewed it as an earned benefit based on their work and contributions, not simply an assistance program based on financial need. Another proposal is reducing future cost of living increases. That may save the system money, but it would place the burden directly on retirees who are already dealing with higher food prices, housing costs, medical bills, insurance premiums, and utilities. A smaller COLA may look like a technical adjustment in Washington. At the kitchen table, it means less purchasing power. So this debate is not simply about whether Australia has a good retirement system. The real debate is about who should carry the risk. Should the government continue guaranteeing lifetime monthly benefits? Should employers be required to place more money into private accounts? Should workers manage more of their own retirement investments? And should the United States build a new structure before Congress repairs the one millions of Americans already depend on? There is no need to panic over an idea that has not become law. But ignoring the discussion would also be a mistake. Retirement changes often begin as proposals, studies, and political conversations long before they become legislation. Thanks for watching Social Security Post, and I'll see you in the next video.